In this video, I want to look at a Python program that reads a local text file. The code can be found at the URL C. Okay, so here we are in Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to just read the same file like 4 times over and just read it in slightly different ways. So one thing is I want to get the terminal thinking that it's in the location of the file. So then I'm going to read the text file that's next to it. And I'm not going to have to worry about paths because it will be located. The terminal will think that it's located with the file, and then the text file I'm reading is sort of right next to it. So there it is. There's my Python file, and there's this frostpoem.txt that I'm going to read. Okay, so I'm importing the operating system module to do that. I'm finding the path of the file, which includes the file name. I'm getting the directory name, which is going to strip off the file name and just have the path, and then change the directory to that. So now it thinks it's located where my file is. So then when I say read, open this poem without any path information, it's going to look for it next to the file that is this read file.py. Okay, so I'm opening that file. So I'm creating sort of a stream here. I'm opening it for reading. And so I open that file for reading, and then I read it. When I have a resource like that I've opened, then I should close it now that I read it, and then I can print the poem. And then I'm just printing some break because I'm just going to keep reading the same file. So I want some visual, and my output, some sort of strong visual divider to show my different regions. So this, open the file, read it all at once, close the file, print the poem. Okay. Now, the second version is not very different from the first, but it just uses this sort of with approach. That I'm going to do some things with the file being open. So open the file, we're calling it this time F2, and with it being open, let's read it. So that reading the file is indented, so it is going to be done with the file open. And then the things that come below are outdented, so we are no longer with the file open, and so then we don't have to explicitly say close now, because that will be implied. So since we are now leaving the time with the file being opened, it will assume that it should close it. And then I'm going to print the poem out. Again, I read the poem all at once. So the only difference was using this with notation. And I'm going to read the poem all at once. And then I'm going to print out the poem. And it's going to be in all uppercase letters. So I'm using this string method of upper. Okay. In version 3, I'm going to mix up the lines of the poem. So I'm going to bring in the random module, because there will be a shuffle method that I will want. So again, I'm using the with approach. I could have outdented sooner, but I did not. But with the file open for reading, I'm calling it F3. I'm now reading the lines. So now it brings, before we read the whole text, and it's a rather short text, so that was possible. Before we read the entire text as one thing, now we are using a sort of a line delimiter and breaking it into lines. And so now we have a sort of a list of lines, and we're using the shuffle method of the random module to shuffle up that list. So now they will be arranged in a new order. And then I am looking at, in this case, poem 3 is a list. So I'm looking at this first 0 means I'm looking at the first line. And then this -1 actually means to sort of wrap around and look at the last character. So I'm grabbing the last character, and then I'm going to find the number ord, the number associated with that last character, and then convert that number to a string, so then I can add it to this message of ASCII last character. So I want to know what the ASCII code, the number corresponding to the last character is. And when I've done this before, it was a 10, which is a new line. So it divided up on lines, but there was still some character left at the end of each element of my list. And so then down here, when I'm looping through, now my printing is a loop after I've shuffled, but I'm looping through this list and I'm printing each line. I'm doing it in lowercase now, but I've added a second argument to my print statement. To normally a print, there's an implied give me a sort of new line carriage returned. If I have a simple print, it sort of prints it on a line and moves to the next line. But these lines, when I used in 28, when I used read lines, there was still this sort of line feed character at the end. So I was getting, without doing this end, I was getting a blank line between every line that I didn't want. So I am printing and saying, don't put me on a new line by saying end equals quote, quote. I'm saying, don't give me a new line character. The new line character was already there in each element of my list, already had a new line character, and I did not want two. Okay, and version here is my last version, version 4. Again, I'm opening the text for reading, I'm calling it F4. And now I'm not going to, before I read first and second time I read the entire file at once. The third time I read the file sort of all at once, but I read it into a list that was sort of line delimited. And this time I'm sort of reading one line at a time. So I'm looping while I'm reading. So while I have a line in F4, then I'm going to, I'm going to strip it and then ask if. So if there's nothing left when, if there's something left. So I'm going to strip the line, and if there's something left, I'm going to print that line. I'm going to print the I, so I'm going to have a counter. Here I'm incrementing my counter, and then I'm showing the line, and again, I'm doing this, I could do some kind of replace and try to get rid of that end of line character, but instead, again, I'm just in my print statement, adding the end equals quote, quote, so that I'm not having blank lines between all my lines. But there is a blank line, a completely blank line in the poem. I think, guys, between the title and the poem, and some blank lines between, I guess, the stanzas. No, so it's not up there, it's between stanzas. So this is going to skip those blank lines. So all the other ones will have some blank lines. This one up here will have those blank lines in some random spots, but this one is going to get rid of those blank lines. That's happening here with this if. Let's see what it looks like when it runs. Okay, so it's just this Frost poem over and over again. The first version just read it and printed it out, so it should look pretty much like it was in the text file. In version 2, I also read it all at once, but I used the with, but I also used upper, so now it's all in uppercase. And some of what I read were blank lines, and so those blank lines are repeated. In here is that last character being a 10. That was that new line character, just showing that all the elements, or at least the first element, I only really showed it for the first element, but had a new line character at the end. Okay, so this is the one that read it into a list of lines. You can see I also used lower, so it's all in lowercase. And we used the randoms shuffle. So we brought in the random module, we used it shuffle. So now the poem is in sort of, the lines of the poem are in a random order. And so again, some of the elements were these blank lines. Version 4 was where we read line by line. So, and we got rid of blank lines. So here's the poem. I'm adding a number before each line, and but got rid of skipped blank lines. That was my if. Here, strip off the sort of white space of a line, and if there's something left, then print it. Otherwise, don't do anything, that's what got rid of the blank lines. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you about reading a file.